So I was working 3 days, and then 2 days I would be running my business and trying to make it work. Yeah.
The West Midlands and the business and the tech community, and like you lot are just so tight knit and so helpful. In London, I don't feel like it's anything like that.
Innovation is not about technology, it's about people.
Yeah.
It's about people understanding, and learning about what it is and what the possibilities could be.
And you just thought, fuck this.
Yeah.
This can't be.
Yeah.
I can't do this no more.
It's like one side of me is saying, look, I really want to do this and we've got to do it. And then the other side saying, look, I'm scared and I don't think I can do it. And I don't know if I've got what it takes to do it. Yeah.
You have to put yourself in positions that's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Do it, see the results, and you're like, oh no, actually, I got this.
I went off work with depression for a little while, and I think that was the turning point. And I realized that actually, what am I doing, and is this really what I want to do?
Thank you in advance for listening, because it means that my confidence grows. Thank you for subscribing, because it means that I get to share more. And thank you for commenting, because it means that I get to listen to you. And thank you in advance for sharing, because that's confirmation that we inspired you to inspire others. I pray that you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed creating it.
This is the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat, and here I'll be speaking to as many entrepreneurs that we deem to be the next promising entrepreneurs of this world. So let's get into it. Here today I'm speaking to Taran, who is the owner of Taran 3D, which is a 3D company, and I want him to introduce himself and tell me who you are, tell me what you do, tell the viewers who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name's Taran Singh from Birmingham. So I've lived in Birmingham my whole life, and I run a company called Taran 3D. And we are basically an immersive tech company that deals with immersive technologies like VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, and we also work on the metaverse platforms as well for clients. And we mainly work with engineering companies, architectural companies, heritage companies, and arts companies as well.
Right. Now, this sounds real technical. So I want you to break it down a little bit further. Obviously, everyone talks about the metaverse now, and everyone's like, this is a whole big thing. So I want you to talk a little bit more about what you do, what you do, because I mean, I know obviously what you do, but it's really, really fascinating about what you've been working on for the past, 4 years, isn't it? Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about it.
So essentially what we do is we help our clients communicate more effectively with their customers or visitors or clients. And we do that by enabling them to communicate in a more interactive way. So rather than just sort of telling them or kind of having a video production, which is quite passive, we can actually make interactive applications online, on VR headsets, on touchscreens. And this means that people can actually delve more into the products or more into the environments that our clients are trying to attract their customers into. So whether that's sort of like an environment that you can walk around and click on things to learn more about them, or whether that's a product that you can actually spin around and see in 3D and then see what all the features are. And it might be that we can put a product into somebody's living room. So if you've got a product that you're trying to sell to customers, we can create an augmented reality version, and then they can obviously see what it might look like in their living room. And so all these different techniques and ways of using people's devices. So everyone's got a mobile phone, and it enables our clients to sort of be a bit more intimate with their clients and let them sort of take control of how they want to experience it. Whereas an advert is quite linear. You just experience it in a linear way. With our content, it's really interactive. So the person who's using the content actually gets to decide what they want to sort of focus on.
I love that. So it's like, is it DFS or is it Wayfair? One of them places where you put up your phone and then it kind of puts a whole image of like the sofa in your living room. It's like that. You can do that.
Definitely like that. It's like IKEA have made an app where so they've made an app where you can pick any furniture you want, and then you can see what it might look like, the size and the style of it in your living room. And as an example, we worked on the Commonwealth Games. So we worked on the mascot. So during the pandemic, where the mascot couldn't go out, to meet people, we were able to create an augmented reality version in Instagram. So what you could do is you could take a picture of yourself standing next to Perri the mascot. And that was a way of engaging, engaging people in the Commonwealth Games, even though we were all stuck at home.
Wow, I didn't even know that even happened. I mean, I didn't watch Commonwealth Games, so I was never going to see that. But that is sick. And you done that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they gave us the design of the character. We were able to create a 3D model. So we used like traditional CAD software and sculpting software to recreate, objects in a 3D. And then we're able to sort of add a skeleton to it and then animate it and rig it to make movements and stuff like that. So with the augmented reality filter, we had like 3 poses. So he had sort of 3 signature poses that he does.
Yeah.
And so you could pick the one that you want, and then you could take a photograph of him doing the same pose. And like we had like sports people and like politicians around the West Midlands all using it and like engaging. And I think within the first sort of week, we had like 4.7 million engagement on on Twitter and Instagram. So it was really quite a successful campaign.
Oh wow. Okay. So, all right. So in saying that, in terms of the engagement of what you've been able to do, would you say that it's because of this new technology that's coming out, the augmented reality and the VR and metaverse and things like that? Do you think that is going to play a massive part in the way that we're going to end up seeing things in the future?
I think a massive driver of technology is always accessibility. The more accessible it is, the more it will sort of pervade, general life. And I think because everyone's got model mobile phones now, and they're quite capable, they're capable of doing augmented reality, they're capable of sort of projecting images into people's, video. So, all Instagram filters and Snapchat filters, these are quite powerful and they're very easy for people to use. They're very accessible. So they're going to become more and more prominent. And now companies and brands are like understanding this and seeing that actually this is a new way for us to communicate and engage with our audiences. So yeah, I think it is definitely going to change. And I think the way that we're going to see this going is soon this is going to translate into glasses and contact lenses. So you're going to be able to augment 3D objects.
Sorry, hold on. What contact lenses?
Yes, so contact lenses.
Is that
as well.
like on the horizon?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean they're actively being developed at this moment in time. Where so you've got a VR headset.
Yeah.
So virtual reality sort of completely covers everything that you see.
Yeah.
Whereas augmented reality, we've got headsets like the HoloLens made by Microsoft, and what that enables you to do is actually put objects into your room. So you can actually put like any 3D object into your room, and you can still see the room and you can see the object as well. But it's got a very short sort of like, window of vision. But soon when they sort of become more easier, and they're quite expensive as well. So when it turns into your glasses and you put your glasses on and your glasses are able to augment, it could be like a TV screen or your computer screen. So you won't need a computer screen anymore. It'll just be able to augment the screen there and then augment other objects and adverts and things like that. And I think that's where it's going to really start to sort of, pervade normal life, where you're augmenting your environment with extra information or additional sort of tools that will make it easy for you. So one example that we prototyped was a boiler system. So we had a boiler system and we had to teach someone how to refill the pressure in the boiler. And we did it through augmented reality by adding QR code tags onto it. And when you put a mobile phone and look at the boiler, it would actually tell you which button to press, how far you have to, turn the knob, and then where you want the gauge, where you want the pressure to be. And so if you imagine that sort of stuff in everyday life, where you can see the temperature of the fridge just by looking at it, or you can sort of see what the status of your security system in your house is, and things like that, it's all going to be more accessible. And I think...
Right. How we see it is like all the holograms of people kind of turning up and just weird shit, like you just do that and things just change. That's literally what life is going to be like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think usually like science fiction sort of informs technology.
Right.
Because if you think about all the people who are young watching Star Trek, they had these electronic pads.
Yes.
And
that's
then
iPads.
Exactly, it's iPads, yeah, and then they became iPads in the future. And if you look at this sort of holograms and things like that were in Star Wars and Star Trek and things like that, they're all starting to happen now. So we've got things called like depth cameras, which can capture volumetrically a person in real time, and then be able to project that into like a VR headset or into someone's, environment. And all these things, everything's sort of like, converging now, because and mainly it's due to like the technology advancing, the graphics processors, mobile phones becoming more powerful, VR headsets becoming more compact, and thing is, all these different technologies like graphics processing, the screens, the cameras becoming having more fidelity, and then the tracking software becoming better. All these things are enabling all these different technologies to be able to mix together.
So, all right, cool. So what I want to ask you is, how long ago did you start looking into technology? Like, did you go to school, college, university? Like,
Yeah. So yeah, I for me it started with computer games. So when I was at school, like just playing games and playing games with friends. We used to do LAN games. We used to bring all of our computers to somebody's house.
sorry, what?
Yeah. So what we would do is
Is that like a real technical, geeky thing to do? Because
it
I've
is-
never
it
heard
was,
that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So what we would do is, like, because we wanted to play with each other, and to do that kind of effectively, didn't used to have all these online games that much in that time. So what we would do is we would bring all of our computers, like, all my friends would bring their computers to my house, and we would hook them up together, and then we would play games against each other, and then we'll have like a weekend or a day, where we could like do that. And so we used to do a lot of that, and I think through that I got really interested in 3D design, because obviously in these computer games you've got these very elaborate sort of environments, elaborate characters you're able to explore, and things. I wasn't from a very rich family, so we didn't really travel much, but through computer games I was able to like travel to ancient Egypt, or far away kind of like planets, and be in science fiction environments. So for me it was a bit of like excitement and a bit of escapism, because because we didn't really get to go anywhere, but within these games I was like seeing different places, visiting different cities at different time periods, and it was all fascinating to me. And there was one time at secondary school we were actually covering the Romans, and I pretty much aced the assignment because I'd been playing Rome Total War, which is a game all about like Roman like politics and war and all the different factions, and I pretty much had learned it all through playing a computer game. And I think that's where I realized that computer games are quite powerful, that while you're playing you're learning so much as well. And I started to teach myself how to 3D model around that time.
Oh, brilliant! It's funny that you've said that, how much games actually really propelled you in school. Like, for you to be able to ace a whole exam just because of playing a game, like, is crazy, right? And the power in that is massive. Obviously, that I'm building a game that's based around educating people, but through gaming. It's a huge project, and we'll talk about it a whole nother time. But that's really interesting. So you, from secondary school, you got, like, that's when you kind of started looking into 3D modeling. Going into college and university, like, did you find school to be quite pressurizing?
Yeah, I think I didn't really do that well at school. I didn't really come out with many GCSEs. So
What did you get?
I think I pretty much failed everything. I think I maybe got one or two. I can't even remember. But I didn't do that well anyway. But I was more of a doer. Like, I was more about like doing things creatively. And I think school-wise, they're very good at sort of making you feel like less than average if you're not academic.
Yeah.
And I wasn't academic, but I was more sort of creative, and I wanted to do things and make animations and draw things. And I was really into sculpting. I always wanted to be a sculptor, but there was no real access to it where I was living. There was no sculptors at school. There were no sculptors around that area. It was like, just, this is something that's really far away and we can't get access to. But when I was sort of looking at 3D software, it gave me a chance to sort of have a go and start modeling things and modeling my own characters. And I started actually modding games. So there was a whole scene back in the day where you could modify the games by injecting your own models. And so I started to put in, and things at that time, there were no diverse characters in, you'd never see someone like me or you in those games. So I made one of the first like Sikh characters in Unreal Tournament back in the day. And so I was able to model up my character, get it in the game, and like just make a big kind of fuss about it. And it was really kind of exciting to see that. And I always had this idea that I wanted to like make games about Sikh history and kind of talk about our stories, because you play games and you play through stories, and you learn about stories and you learn about history. So I always had this kind of dream that one day I would make a game and tell people the story of our people and our history. And I haven't made it yet, but I will. You know, I'm still working on it.
Yeah. We might be able to work on that together.
Yeah.
Okay, what you just said was powerful, right? School makes you feel inadequate, right? Because I felt like that when I went to school as well. I didn't get many GCSEs, and the GCSEs that I did get, it was I think I got a couple C's. I think I got one B, and it was in some kind of creative media, dance or I can't even remember what it was, right? But the feeling of inadequacy, how did you then transition from that young boy feeling inadequate coming out of school with no GCSEs, no nothing, and getting to this point now where you're doing 3D models for what, Leicester Council?
Yeah, so yeah, we're doing
you're doing huge sculptures and shit.
Yeah, so we're actually doing a public sculpture for Leicester Council. One of the World War soldiers that we're modelling for that.
So how did that mindset of that child that came out of school that didn't really you didn't grow up with much, right? You didn't get much GCSEs. You felt the inadequacy essentially, but yet you've still years on have everything that everybody feels like they need in life. You've got a business, you've got a beautiful wife, you've got children, you've got a house. Like, how did you get to that point?
Yeah,
from
so
that feeling?
I think it's like because my parents were immigrants to this country, worked really hard, and I think growing up, I think that's one thing I learned from them, was I just saw them really graft and work hard. So as soon as I left sort of school, I was like just designing posters, you know, because I learned how to use the software. I was like seeing, well, actually I can make posters now for people. I can do different designs. I can make 3D models of buildings.
Where did you get the software from?
Mainly like online. So there's like free software online that I would
free software.
Yeah, free software online I would download, and then I would start using it. It used to be a free program called Coral Xara. It used to be right back in the day, and I started off with that. And then I got access to some of the 3D software as well. The problem was at that time there wasn't much content for you to be able to learn. So now we've got like YouTube, where you can learn anything pretty much now. In those days there wasn't that. There was no access to those people. So you basically had to do it through trial and error. So I was just sitting there doing trial and error, trying to create things, printing things, and then it got to the point where I became known in my area as like Taran the 3D guy. Hence the business name Taran 3D, because everyone just knew me as Taran the 3D guy, the guy who does 3D. And I was working with I got to work with TV stations, I got to work with print companies, and I was doing posters for events. And the thing is, what I didn't realize, I didn't really see myself as a business person or entrepreneur. I thought, oh, this is something that other people who are more qualified and more sort of like, people in a better position do. And I just saw it as I've just got to survive now, so I'll just get on with it. And so I just started working. So I pretty much worked through all that period. And it turned out by the time I was about 19, 20, I had a massive portfolio of work. I had about 500 pieces of work that was out there.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, I wasn't charging that much for it because I was learning at the same time. But what it meant was when I was going for these sort of more qualified jobs, I went to work at a TV station. I worked at Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery as well, worked for a design studio. And I got all those jobs sheerly through my portfolio. And I realized that actually they weren't really interested in my qualifications. They were interested in what your capability is, what can you do, in it. And so I would turn up and I would have 100 pieces of work that I could share. I've done this. And I was that kind of person that I would just try anything. I would just have a go at anything. Like somebody say, oh, we need to design these panels that need to go on the wall at this community centre. And even though I'd never done it before, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll have a go. And it was just that sort of, let's have a go, let's see what we can do. And I got into, like I said, the TV station. I worked at a print agency, and I just kind of went into web design a little bit as well. Did a bit of design work, and it ended up when I was working at the museum, I was getting a bit more serious about my 3D stuff because I was always doing it on the side. And then I applied for a job at an interior design company, and I got a job there doing actually 3D. It was my first 3D job because 3D was my hobby. You see,
Yeah, cool.
it was something that I enjoyed doing on the side, and that was the first 3D design job I got. And I learned more in 6 months than I learned in like 3-4 years of doing it at home. And so that kind of opened up, all that experience. And then I went on to work for an architectural company. And then I got a chance to actually go back to university and do like a master's degree.
Oh, brilliant.
And so because I was already working in the industry, I was able to get on the master's. And because it was subsidised by EU funding for people from my area, because I'm from like Handsworth, and it was seen as sort of like a deprived area that we need to support and develop the people that are there. So because of that funding, I was able to go and do a master's in computer-aided design, which I did in 2010. And then from there, I obviously, because I had that computer games, background, I was looking at computer-aided design, but asking the question, why aren't architectural companies using computer games?
Right.
So I was one of the first ones around that time experimenting with game engines and saying to architectural companies, we should be using this. So my thesis was on the use of game engines in the architectural industry. And after that, I was contacted by an engineering company who were really interested in this sort of stuff. And they said, could you come and do a presentation? And so I just went and did a presentation. And I was just presenting the stuff that I was interested in. Like, I've looked at this. Been looking at daylighting in game engines. And there used to be a game engine called CryEngine, and I picked that up and I made sort of like some of my architectural plans in there, and they saw it and they offered me like a part-time position while I was finishing off my master's, and so I went to work there and ended up working there for like 10 years. And then when the VR headsets, so the new generation of VR headsets that came out, the Oculus and the Vive and the Quest, they all started around 2014, 2015. So about 6-7 years ago. And so when those came out, because we were already doing visualizations, and I had sort of introduced sort of interactive visualizations, so rather than just a still image. So back in the day, it would be like if they were creating like a new building, they'd just create an image of this is what it looks like.
Right, yeah.
But then I started making multiple images and combining them together and making controls, so you could switch lights on and off and see energy feedback and things like that. And then when the first VR headsets came out, the company obviously bought one and said, can we start using these? And then I started transitioning everything over to those.
And you done that for the company?
Yeah. So I was there, like, my part of my job was to sort of like, build these applications. And obviously it was a massive engineering company. They had different departments working with like acoustics, electrical, mechanical, vertical transport, and mainly the lighting. So we worked mainly with the lighting because that's the big visual component that they want to communicate. So I was... just prototyping and then creating loads of these applications. So
for you to be able to get from the feeling of kind of inadequacy to this position of like being able to learn so much and being able to be offered positions and be offered to go and do a master's and all those kinds of things, like, what was your thought process? Like, did you think that that was going to be your path and you knew that that's going to happen? Did you feel like, how did you really feel?
I think I still felt inadequate the whole way through. The 10 years that I was there, I still felt inadequate. I just thought, like, obviously the imposter syndrome was really strong. And like, I was like, I'm really lucky to be here. And I really appreciated where I got to. But I wasn't empowered, like, in it. I was just like, things were happening to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like opportunity came in front of me and they were happening to me. I wasn't really in the driving seat, if that makes sense. I was just like going along with whatever came my way. And it was only when, like, later on in the career, and I wanted to get a bit more involved in what the strategy was, and I was just like doing the work and doing the prototype. When it came to like deciding on what the strategy was, how we move forward and how the business should grow, I wasn't really too involved with that. And I think I did want to be involved in the steering because I understood the technology, and I didn't really acknowledge my entrepreneurial sort of, what do you call it, like spirit that I had, in within you. I didn't really embrace it. Like I always said, like I was the person who was saying I would never go into business. I never want to run my own business. I don't want to be involved in the business side. I just want to focus on doing the design and just creating wonderful things, and that's it.
Why?
I don't know. I think because I didn't really understand what business was about. So to me, right, business was more like there's these people who are quite bossy and they're gonna sort of like, my idea of like business people was like the Wall Street sort of films and stuff in it. So I
Right.
thought it was like people in suits saying sell, sell, sell on their phone and things like that. Yeah. And so I had a really kind of bad view of business really in it. And it was probably being around people who weren't very good business people. And so
Right.
I had a really kind of like not a very good experience with business and stuff. So I always thought I don't want to be in that sphere. But
That's interesting.
when I started to think about actually, look, I really understand this technology. I think I know where it could go. And I started seeing gaps. I started looking at museums. I started looking at arts organizations. And I was like, this technology could be used in all these different places. But really, the business wasn't interested in that. That I was working for. They were just like, no, we're engineering firms, so we're going in this direction, which was great, yeah. And they were all great people as well. The people I worked with, I really enjoyed working with them. But I started to slowly get sort of like depressed in my job. Like I had a good job, I was doing the things that I liked doing, but I just wasn't happy, and I didn't understand why. I should be happy really. Why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? And I think it just got to the point where it just wasn't enough, and I was trying to work out actually what do I do. And then around that time I thought, well, I've got to do something. I've got to change something, otherwise I'm going to be stuck in this sort of rut. And I started going to sort of like drawing classes, art classes. So it's like my creative side I'd sort of left behind in the past.
Right.
And so I started going to sculpting retreats and testing out things. And then in 2015, 2016, I created a Sikh sculpture. So I was making it for myself because I really wanted to see it, because I looked online. I was really interested in sculpture, and I'd see like Roman sculptures, Italian sculptures. I'd see like Native Americans, all these different sculptures, all these different subject matter. But I never saw, you never see yourself there. Never see that representation. So I started making, designing sculptures and learning. And my first sculptures were really bad, and I just kept learning. And then I started to create, my own Sikh sculptures.
Sorry.
And that.
And then now they look like this.
Yeah, now they look like that. Yeah, so
Like, that is phenomenal. The detail on that is wild. Like, it's actually wild. Sorry,
yeah.
carry on. I just
So
needed to.
in 2016, and then I was making it, and my friend from London came down. He was like, "Oh, I really like that. Can you make me one as well when you make it?" And I said, "All right, yeah, fine." And I didn't have any 3D printers. I was gonna like send it out to get it done. And I remember when I got the first 3D print done, I sent it out. Anyway, everyone who kept coming down kept saying to me, "Oh, can you do me one as well? Can you do me one as well?" And eventually my friend Daljit from London, he said to me, he goes, "Why don't you just do like a Kickstarter or a crowdfund for this?" And so we did a crowdfund, and like I made the video and everything, and I put it online, and I was like scared it's not going to get funded. And it was for £12,000, and I set it for 30 days.
Okay.
And I put it online, and it actually it reached the target in 4 days, like.
Oh, wow.
And we actually overhit the target, like by 45%. We actually overdid it, and people all over the world were ordering them, and it seemed like there was people out there who wanted to see that representation as well.
But you were scared about doing it.
I was scared about doing it. Yeah, I was really scared about doing it. Yeah, so when I did
imagine
it,
if you didn't.
yeah, no, definitely. If I didn't, I was scared that nobody's gonna want it, nobody's gonna buy it, and there's gonna be egg in my face. And I think something my friend always said, he said to me when I bought my house, I bought my house really early, like in it, and I was really scared, like, oh my god, it's a big thing, I'm buying a house, yeah, and this is like I was getting married, and and I was putting a deposit down on a house, and it was like, and a friend of mine said something to me actually. He said, what's the worst that can happen? If you can't afford the mortgage or the payments, you just sell the house and it's fine in it. And I thought, actually, you're right. What's the worst that can happen? And I think with the Kickstarter, I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Nobody buys it. That's fine. It's over. I still make one for myself and a couple of my mates, and it's done. And so it being a success, it kind of gave me a bit more confidence. And, and at that time, I didn't even call myself an artist. I was scared of that word, and it was only like a couple of years later, I went to this sort of workshop with a friend of mine, called Daljit. He runs these like coaching sessions, and he made me say it like there, and it was like, I was really scared. It was like saying that actually I'm an artist, and I can do this and take ownership of it. And I think that's the thing that what stopped me from entering business was I wasn't taking ownership of my skill set, what I was capable of, and so I was in a way, it was my own fault. And so my friend said to me, he said something to me. He said, "What you're doing is," he goes, "you're looking at the people on the pitch. Yeah, let's say you go to a football match. You're looking at the people on the pitch and you're criticizing them, or you're saying that they're not doing things right, or the things that they're missing, or they're not seeing, but you're not stepping out onto the football pitch. You know what I mean? So really, can you really criticize those people? You know, unless you come out there and you get in the firing line." And I think that was really like about 4 or 5 years ago where I started to realize, actually, if I don't take ownership of who I am and what I can do, somebody else is always going to use it to their advantage rather than mine. So I started to sort of like develop that side of the business. So I originally set up Taran 3D just to do sculptures. But then when I started looking at where I could use VR and start selling those services, so I was speaking to a friend of mine from Leicester, and he's a historian, and he was saying, like, we got this big problem with museums where we can't get objects out. You know, we can't, because it costs a lot to insure them. Some people won't lend their objects, you know, if they've got them in private collections. And I was like, well, have you ever thought about, you know, using 3D technologies? Like, we could do a scan, we could create a 3D model, and we could put it onto a screen or a VR headset, and, you know, we could use it. And he was like, well, okay. He goes, can you do something for us? Can you do a pilot so we can show people? So this wasn't a paid gig yet, but I thought, you know, actually this is a good chance for me to experiment a little bit. So I got the photographs of the objects that we were looking at. We didn't have access to the objects even at this stage, and I was able to model them up, do all the pattern work. It's a piece of armor from India, basically. It's in a private collection. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was able to recreate it, and he took it to a conference that he did in America. And they had really good feedback from like all the historians, history buffs. And he came back and he said, look, we've got some funding for an exhibition in Leicester. Could you kind of expand it a little bit? And so we did a 50-inch touchscreen, which they had lying around. The museum had it lying around and said, look, nobody's using it. And we said, is it all right if we use it? So we borrowed it off them, and we didn't have much of a fee, but we actually digitized like 8 objects and put them on there. And when it was on the exhibition and families were coming into using it, it was a massive hit with young families and young kids. They were all drawn to the screen and wanted to play with it and learn from it. So the following year, they put in a Heritage Lottery bid for doing an expanded project, 20 objects, and doing a website and various things. And that's really where my business sort of started. So as part of that project, I kind of pitched in that I would do all the 3D work. So I was to get a big chunk of that, then I could, my business basically started from there. And at that time I was working part-time as well. So I started off working, obviously I work in 5 days and doing it in the evenings and weekends. So on the weekend I'd be plugging away, doing things. I had little kids as well. And then eventually when it started to pay a little bit of money, I went 3 days. So I said to work, I said, I want to do other things. I want to cut down to 3 days. And they were very accommodating. They said, yeah. Because they needed me as well, like in it. So they were saying, okay, yeah, we'll give you that bit of time. So I was working 3 days, and then 2 days I would be running my business and trying to make it work. And this is the thing, I didn't know anything about business at that time either when I started off.
And that's crazy. So at what age was that?
So I was in my late 30s then, like in it. So I was like, you know, about 35, 36.
So at 35, 36, you decided to go into business properly, but even then it wasn't like full-time, it was still part-time. Right? And would you say that, because you were saying earlier that you would have regretted if you didn't if you didn't like pursue this, right? If you didn't go into learning a bit more and finding your creative side because you was feeling depressed. Was there like any kind of pivotal moment that you remember and you just thought, fuck this. This can't be, I can't do this no more. What was that moment?
I think it was at work. I was working, and you know, I was training up other people as well alongside me, and I think it was the moment when it was a moment when like I wasn't doing very well at work while other people at work were doing very well. And I'd never been in that position before because I'd always been like, you know, at the top of my game, and always smashing it. And then it came a point where I wasn't smashing it. I wasn't feeling it anymore. And then I went off work with depression for a little while. And I think that was the turning point. And I realized that actually, what am I doing? And is this really what I want to do? And what I realized was I didn't really have any control of where I was going, and I think that's what it was really. I wanted to work on things that I wanted to work on. I wanted to be passionate about the work that I'm doing, and I wanted to forge my own path rather than follow the path that is kind of set out for me or that is ahead of me, you know. And I was like, it's like you're going in this direction, but actually I'm interested in going over there.
Yeah.
But I've got no way of getting there. So I was in this sort of stuck position because obviously I had a wife and kids and got a mortgage and, you know, car to pay for. And so I couldn't just, you know, quit straight away. I had to be really strategic about it, and I had to think long term. It had to be long term. Like I was thinking, okay, I'm here now. How am I going to get out of here?
So in that stuck feeling, right? And the fact that you've got responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
In that stuck feeling, did you feel like, because I've recently been in that stuck feeling, and I kind of felt like all of the self-doubt and like all of the things that I felt, the inadequacy that I felt growing up as a child, coming from school,
Yeah.
all of that came back to me at that moment of when I was stuck. Did that happen for you as well?
100%, yeah. Like when I was looking at sort of the businesses out there, the business landscape in the West Midlands and stuff, I kind of felt like I don't belong there.
Right.
And a lot of us get that, especially from immigrant families and stuff. We look at these spaces, and because we don't see the representation there, we feel as though actually we don't belong there. But it's not so much like like a race thing. It's also like a class thing as well. It's like you're from working class background. These people are all well spoken, and you know, I'm just a tramp from Handsworth, like, in it. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I fit in there? But what I kind of realized was that actually, you know what? If I don't do anything, if I don't do this, what is the alternative? Is that I'm going to be stuck in it. So I was kind of like, and that transition was really painful. That transition from being like, oh, this isn't for me, I don't know how it's going to work, I don't know nothing about business, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, to actually saying, you know, F this, I'm going to just do it, like, in it. That was a bit painful. It was, in a way, it was sort of, I was more forced by circumstance rather than it was me saying, oh, I'm going to do this now. It was like, it was getting to the point where it was getting so difficult, and it was getting really hard to go to work each day. Like, I would be like going to work and I would be like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Why do I feel like this is like torture rather than, you know, I used to be excited to go to work. And so I didn't have that. And I just said, like, you know what, I thought, obviously I had a lot of conversations with my wife at the time as well. And she was really like helpful, and, you know, and she was very supportive as well. And getting her on side was really important, because the first year that I kind of, when I left work, she was like supporting the family and the house and everything. So I had to make that agreement with her, you know, are you okay? Because before that I'd handled everything. So she was happy to do that. And yeah, that transition was really painful, and kind of had to go through it. And it is a lot of sort of, you know, it's kind of like arguing with yourself. It's like one side of me is saying, look, I really want to do this and we've got to do it. And then the other side saying, oh, look, I'm scared and I don't think I can do it. And I don't know if I've got what it takes to do it. And then the other side saying, you know, just go anyway and just try anyway. And so that kind of inner conflict went on for about a year. But luckily I was still working on it. So it took me a year to transition out of work. So I had to have that long-term plan in it, as in like, okay, let me start developing the website. Let me start making those contacts. Let me start advertising what I'd already done, you know, with the museum stuff, go to talks, go to seminars. And that's where I sort of started to learn about how things work, you know, going out and explaining to people. So people want to know, how did you do it, you know, and going to museums and doing seminars and CPDs. And for me, it's very easy to talk to people, because I was able to explain things very simply, because I'm from a technical background. But I think one thing that helped me the most when I came to business was having that empathy with people.
Right.
Is trying to understand where people are coming from. So I can understand, well, if I tell you about polygons and vertexes, it's not going to mean anything to you. But if I explain it in a simple way, that, look, they're points and edges that I can pull and push, and they create an object like a sphere, and I can stretch it and move it. People understood all that, and I started demonstrating and showing people as well. And a lot of like the business and people approaching me for work came from actually me just teaching people and showing people, saying, oh, this is how I did it, this is where I think it could work, and showing people this is what the possibility is. And I think a lot of, you know, the business doing well came from that. Because there's one thing I say, and I say a lot as well, is you know, innovation and technology. You know, innovation is not about technology, it's about people.
Yeah.
It's about people understanding, you know, and learning about what it is and what the possibilities could be.
Exactly.
So my focus has always been on people and their experience rather than the technology. So while we work in VR and AR, we're always looking at actually how is the customer going to experience this? How are they going to use it? How are they going to feel? What are they going to find difficult? What are they going to find? What's going to make it easy for them? And that for me was like a, you know, really easy to do because I'd always done that, you know. And but it was a game changer in the business field. Like, and it's when I came into business, it was like we were sort of, you know, getting very popular, getting asked to do talks, getting asked to attend events, and people were having conversations about, you know, with us. Because when I started the business, nobody understood the technology, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you said earlier, it's like, what, you know, this sounds fascinating, but what is it? And what can it do? So we decided, well, I decided early on that rather than trying to sell the technology, I'm just going to teach people about it. Because if they understand what it is and what it can do, what it can't do, they can better engage with me and do business with me. You know, they can come to me and say, oh, well, actually, now that I understand it, I want this.
Exactly.
So rather than me telling them, oh, you should be doing this, I was saying, look, this is what the technology is, this is what it can and can't do, this is where it's worked really well, these are the case studies. And they would be informed and they'd say, well, actually, yeah, we understand this now. Do you reckon we could do this? And I would be like, yeah, so this would work and this would work. And I was more advising them and giving them ideas and helping them. And so I became more of like a consultant and helping them. So, and thing is, it built that trust as well with people.
Of course, because then it makes people know that you know exactly what you're talking about, which then allows them to then put the money in you and kind of trust you to go off and do it.
And I wasn't just a salesperson just trying to sell them something shiny and new. I was saying, this thing's really cool and it could be useful in certain situations. And it's like, how do you, I kind of go to clients and say, how, now that you understand it, where do you think it would work in your business? And then they usually tell me, and they usually come out with good ideas because they understand their business better than I do. You know what I mean? So they can say, well, actually, I think it would really help us to train people here, or it would help us to show people how this technology or how this machinery works.
So I like the fact that you've been able to essentially transfer your skills, right? The skills that you didn't deem to be entrepreneurial or business-like. You've been able to transfer them and actually make your business so strong based on those things that you thought wasn't worth it.
I didn't have no value on those things. I didn't even know I had those skills, and I thought that business is about numbers and, you know, it's about strategy and it's all about business plans and all these kind of things. But actually, you're doing business with people, and one thing I was really good at is just making friends with people and talking to people just on a level, and, you know, and that really, especially during COVID as well, where people were looking for something different. They were looking for something more empathetic, looking for something more emotional, and somebody who's more cares about what you know, about people. And that really kind of was a bit of a game changer as well. And because it leveled the playing field as well, you see. Because I was just, when we started the business, we didn't have no office. We couldn't afford an office. We were working, it was me, a guy called Marcus, who actually also came from my old company. There's a guy called Jeevan down south who kind of joined as well. And then I met Jo, who was a freelance marketer. And she came in and really helped to sort of understand marketing, and she got a really good understanding of who we were. And so she started communicating that out, you know, because she saw those little things that we were doing or what we were about. And we weren't very good at communicating it, but she was really good at sort of like making people understand that. And so we were all working from home. And when the COVID came in 6 months after I left work completely, you know, COVID hit, like, in it. And because I'd been talking to everyone about virtual objects, virtual environments, metaverse type things, and we'd be doing that sort of stuff, you know, reproducing products and reproducing, you know, artifacts and, you know, materials and all these kind of things. And I was doing lectures on sort of digital materials, how to make them look real and stuff like that.
If you're enjoying this podcast so far, this is only going to annoy you if you're a hater. Click subscribe, click follow, and drop a quick comment. And if you've done all of those already, then send me a 5-star review, because honestly, it's the only way we survive on the internet. Thank you.
When COVID hit, like our phone just went off the hook, like, and it was like we were inundated. All of a sudden, companies couldn't get their clients to their environment, or they couldn't get their product to the client.
So they need the environment.
And so they were like, can we do this virtually? And I was like, yeah, definitely. We can create a 3D model. We can put it online. We can put it on your mobile phone, put it on a VR headset. We can put it on a touch screen. What do you want to do? And like, it was just like one after the other, like one after the other. And we were like, all of a sudden, like crazy busy during COVID. And I think the other thing is, because we're more sort of like, we don't have this sort of pushy sales thing. We were very sort of like, okay, you know, what do you need? You know, what do you need to understand? You know, and so some of these projects kind of, they didn't happen straight away. They evolved over 6 months, 12 months of relationships with those people and gaining that trust. And then they turned into sort of like big projects that we're working on now.
What type of person, from everything that you kind of just said, this question popped up for me. What type of person was you before, and what type of person did you have to become to get to this level of success?
Yeah, so yeah, I was very sort of introverted, very quiet, sort of scared of speaking up, you know, and I would sort of keep to myself. I was very good at sort of blending into the background. I could go into any room as like special skill. I could
just turn into the red wall.
I could just blend. Nobody knew I was there. Yeah. But obviously, like, the other thing about me is I'm very visibly different. Like, I have a beard and a turban. I'm visibly a Sikh, yeah. And thing is, I'd always thought like that I kind of stick out, and like, you know, I stick out like a sore thumb. Really, you can't really hide, really. Yeah. And that's one of the points of us having this sort of image, is that we can't sort of blend into the background. And it became sort of like a bit of a superpower, because everyone remembered me. Everyone knew that you're so different, like, innit? And I think when I started doing the business, started speaking to people, what I realised was that there was a lot of good people in the business community, especially in the West Midlands. A lot of people who were willing to help. And I realised very early on, like, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing.
Sorry, I just want to say that is so blinking true.
Yeah.
The West Midlands and the business and the tech community, and like, you lot are just so tight-knit and so helpful. In London, I don't feel like it's anything like that.
Yeah, I was going to say
Nothing like that.
I was going to say, I don't know what it's like in London, but in the West Midlands, it was like, you know, I met so many amazing people that sort of helped me start, gain that confidence. So I didn't do it on my own. There were people around me. Like, I knew that. I think the best thing that I did was realize how unprepared I was to start a business. Because what that meant was meant that I would start speaking to people. Oh, you run a business. So how did you do this? How did you deal with that? And these people would just say, oh, yeah, this is what I did. This is normal. You know, don't worry. I had the same thing. And that was really interesting. And so having that community around you, I think building that community of like-minded people who are helpful. So it was like we had something to trade as well. So we had these skills in immersive technologies that we didn't really see around. I was quite surprised, actually, that there weren't other people out there doing this sort of thing. And, we were talking to other businesses, consultancy businesses, people speaking, people working in sort of film production, people working as HR consultants, completely different businesses, but they were facing the same problems and gone through the same transition that we were going through. So yeah, I would just pick anyone's brain. I would just ask questions to anyone, especially some of the veteran, business people who've been running businesses, men and women who had run business for 15, 20 years. Like, I would love those people, like, and I'd meet them and I'd just be like, so how did you do this and how did you did that? And they loved talking about it as well. So it was really useful. So yeah, I just kind of like interview all these people, be fascinated by them, and kind of learned so much from them. So I picked up a lot of information from the people around me. Also in the West Midlands, really lucky that they have a STEAM House project, which is like an EU funded project. It's like a makerspace, so it's attached to Birmingham City University, EU funded. And anyone who's thinking of setting up a creative business, that you can apply there and you get a certain amount of funding to help your business grow. So I joined it.
Where is that in London?
Yeah, I know.
Where is that?
It's quite a unique project actually, because as soon as I left, I left work and I started running my business, didn't have a clue what I was doing. I joined Steam House, and there was a lady there called Sophia Tar, and she was the business engagement person there. And so I'd speak to her, and she kind of looked at what I could do, and she said, you've really got something here. And part of the program is that they help you sort of develop your business. And so I had loads of sessions with her where she was like going through all these things with me and saying, this is the way things are done, like how invoices are done, even simple things like that. And just to say that there's so many things more that I still need to learn, that I'm still learning, like all the HR thing, because we've got a team of like 6 people now in the business. So just managing all of that, pensions and all that kind of stuff, just making sure that's done, getting VAT registered and dealing with all of that. So all these things we're just learning as we're going along. And I find that there was a time period in the past where I got stuck in this loop of learning. And I find when I meet young people, they do that, where, you know what I mean? They don't launch yet because I'm still learning, I'm not ready. And I was that person as well. I would keep learning. I amassed a crazy amount of skills, but I just wasn't sort of out there and telling anyone about those skills. But because when I did go out there and show people what I could do, people were kind of amazed by what we were capable of. We're just small business come out of nowhere in Birmingham, and we could do all these crazy things that like Facebook was talking about and other big businesses were talking about. But we were like small and able to work with smaller organizations. And we kind of found a niche where actually there's a lot of big companies out there providing immersive tech, but there wasn't nobody providing it for small arts organizations or, small architects companies and things like that. So we were able to sort of like corner that market in the West Midlands and make a name for ourselves, establish ourselves, and and this thing about personal brand as well, that kind of we learnt by accident, by just being invited to things and just going to have a go. And I mean, at the beginning I was really afraid to go out and talk. Like I was really nervous and like trying to talk and like feeling like an imposter, really nervous, like, and it's sitting there on this panel with like other people. But actually I found that when I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about, I was talking about VR technologies and things like that, it would just naturally, it would just come out, and it would just like sort of flow. And I sort of just went with it and slowly just became more and more comfortable with it. And I think it gets to the point where the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it.
That right there, right? The more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. And if there's a couple times that you kind of said that your confidence was built based on the evidence that you received.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something I say all the damn time. It's like people have this false pretense of where confidence comes from, right? And it's like you don't, okay, what it is, it's not that you don't have anything in your life that shows you that you're confident. You don't take the time to evaluate and reflect on all the things you've done, or all the experiences you've had, and all the things that you've learned to be able to say, do you know, actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
And allow your confidence to grow in that way, right? And then it really irks me when people kind of just, I'm just going to do some affirmations and tell myself I'm confident in the mirror and I'm going to become confident. It just doesn't work like that. You have to put yourself in positions that's a little bit difficult, do it, see the results, and you're like, oh no, actually, I got this.
Exactly.
And then your confidence just shoots off the roof, and then you just keep doing more and more, and it's kind of like a knock-on effect, isn't it?
100%, yeah. And at the beginning, it was like, there were certain things, like if I had to do like this podcast back then, I would be dreading it like for about a week. I'll be like nervous for a week. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do it? How am I going to come across and things like that? But I think that I realized that actually if I don't do this, it's going to damage the company. I ain't going to be able to run my business. It's going to fail. So I was like, actually, no, I got to do this, like, innit? So I got used to putting myself in really uncomfortable situations. And I think there was a bit at the beginning where I was avoiding it, and I had to have a chat with myself and saying, listen, there's no two ways about it. You're going to have to do these uncomfortable things, whether you like it or not. Just accept it. And I think as soon as I accepted it, this is going to be hard work. That's one thing I had to accept. Number two, every situation, every month, every progression that you make, there's going to be something more uncomfortable for you to deal with. I was like, okay, then And then as soon as I said, okay, that's how it's going to be, I've accepted it, and let's go for it. So now I actually seek out uncomfortable situations now. Like I actually seek it out. Like, what's going to make me the most uncomfortable, like, in it? And then I'll just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I challenge myself. And each time, yeah, you'll see that, okay, it might not be perfect the first time around, but how are you going to learn if you don't start doing it? You know, and I say this to my kids as well all the time, like, and they're like, they're obviously coming in and they're uncomfortable with everything. And I'm like, no, wait, you know, go forward, do it. You're going to feel uncomfortable for a bit, but you know what? It's the only way that you're going to learn and you're going to move forward. And I think that's the important thing, is learn by doing rather than just learning. There's one thing is just learning something, but when you do something, like, in it, you're actually moving forward as well. And I think learning on the job. And I think the other thing that spurred me on, this is one thing that really hit me hard, and I kind of had to sort of assess, you know, and this, a lot of people will feel this. If you're in a job and you're surrounded by people, partners or managers and stuff like that, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, you clearly don't have a clue what you're doing, or, you know what I mean, you're not that great, at what you do, and you're thinking, you know what, you know, I could do a better job at this, like, in it, and it's and okay, you know, that's fine, but unless you're willing to sort of step onto the battlefield or step onto the pitch, you got no right to criticize anyone, And I used to get really upset because I used to see people who were not as skilled as me, hadn't put as much work in, didn't really understand things that well, weren't experts, going out there and doing sort of talks and doing really well and getting all these amazing like jobs and opportunities. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, in it, I was like, how the hell did this happen?
How? Like, who are you?
Exactly. And I think when my friend challenged me on it, and he said, and in a way, like, I had to say this to myself as well, look, if you're not willing to step out, if you're not willing to step in the way or step up, then you might as well just be quiet and just sit down. Don't complain. Because if you're not going to step out and do something, then, you know what I mean, just shut up and sit down in it. And I said that to myself as well. I said, look, you know, either step up or be quiet. Don't criticize other people who are actually trying. So I think that was a big push for me to say, actually, I don't want to criticize anyone. I need to show them how it could be done. And so that my first challenge that first year was to say, go out there, and if you think you're better, then show them. And so I went out there, and that first year we won Outstanding Startup Business of the Year, and at the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, you know, awards. Nice. And that was a brilliant sort of, like, that was the first time I actually thought, you know what, this could actually work.
Yeah.
And so that was great.
Do you know what? That's an uncomfortable thing. Most people don't want to agree with the statement of step up or step down. Mm-hmm. Step up or shut up. Yeah. Like, people won't take the responsibility, but will sit there and criticize and chat rubbish over and over and over again, and then wonder why their life just plateaus and just does nothing. And you're like, well, if you're not going to make the steps, then you have no right, as you said, right? Yeah. But I think what is crazy is the lack of awareness that people have, and people will turn around and blame external circumstances. And to me, I'll be honest with you, like, I believe in the word aggrandizing, which basically means regardless of your past situation or your current situation, you can still be great, right? And that word resonates so much with me, because it's like, your past, my past, very similar. We didn't grow up, we've come from immigrant parents. Well, I'm second generation, but you've come directly from immigrant parents. You felt inadequate in school. You don't have a lot of money. You've been able to come out, and it could have been a case where you started your business at 35, right? It could have been a case where you just said, I'm too old now, because I know a numerous amount of people that will kind of be like, no, like time's gone on. I should have started this when I was younger. I'm just going to stay in my comfortable job, even though I'm a little bit depressed. Might go on antidepressants. I might have a couple weeks off, and then I'll go back to it. And then life just happens to them, as you were saying, right? Life just happens, and you don't take control over it. You don't take ownership over it, which means that you can't steer it the way that you want it to go. And the external excuses of, yeah, but I'm poor. Yeah, but this is where I've come from. Yeah, but I went through this. Yeah, but I went through that. And this is a very unpopular opinion, right? And whether I get stick for it or not, I don't really care. Because the situation is, regardless of those circumstances, you make it work. You take what you have given. We're not all on a level playing field, right? No. We're not. And that's fine. No one's saying that we're all on a level playing field. But what we do have is, right now, access. We have access because we have the internet. Yeah. We have so much information. And with that information, and with podcasts like this, and like different talks and different events and YouTube and this, there's endless information out there. Yeah. It's time to just step up. Yeah. Stop chatting rubbish to yourself. And like, I mean, there was a point at the beginning of this year that I felt really, really down and low. And my confidence just dwindled. Like all the confidence I had growing up was just gone, like in a flash, gone, right? And I had to say to myself, I need to find evidence to regain my confidence. I can't just keep saying, oh, but I need to be confident, oh, but I need to, and feel guilty for not feeling confident, and feel guilty for not doing the things that I want to do, and kind of just sitting on the sofa and watching Netflix all day. Not feel guilty for doing that, but actually say, okay, I need to go out and seek the evidence to build my confidence. And then I started doing random little things, that applying for competitions and applying for accelerators and all of those kinds of things. And I would do it and I'm not hearing nothing back. And I'm like, see, that's it. I'm inadequate. I'm stupid. I need to go back to college. I need to go and do my functional skills so I can go into college, because I can't even get into uni and I'm so old and da-da-da. I was saying all of that to myself, but then randomly, one day, I think it was the 1st of February, I got an email saying I got an interview for the accelerator course that I applied for 6 weeks prior. Yeah. And I was like, what? How did that happen? And it was crazy, because that in itself was that shift, that tiny little thing that happened. It was the smallest thing. It was just a bloody email. But that email gave me so much confidence. And when I say so much confidence, it wasn't all the confidence I need to be able to like go full force, but it was just the right amount of confidence that I needed to take the next step. And then the next step allowed for the next step, and then the next step allowed for the next step, and it was just a knock-on effect. Like, I think it's crazy when people just chat rubbish about.
I think you become a self-fulfilling prophecy, don't you?
That,
you know, and like, you know, when people tell themselves, oh, I am this or I am that, they've already put like a prison around themselves and saying, well, if you're telling yourself you are just this, like I used to tell myself, I'm not a business person. Like, that's not me, like, you know what I mean? I couldn't do that. And then you've already sort of like restricted yourself. Yeah. And I think, and this is a thing, I talked to my friend about this a while ago, and we were just talking, I was saying, listen, the thing is, if you're depressed and down, you're going to talk yourself out of opportunities. So rather than sign up for the accelerator, you're going to say, oh, well, I'm not good enough anyway, so you don't even apply. And you're gonna say, well, I don't know how to run a business, so you're not going to even start your business, or you're not going to enter a course or apply for something or go and meet someone or go to an event for networking, because you think, oh, well, who's going to want to talk to me? And so these things, you become that self-fulfilling prophecy. You created that future for yourself. And that's what you're saying, isn't it? Really. And I think it's being able to see, you know, and try, and not without pressure. I'm saying, like, no, don't put loads of pressure on yourself. Like when I started the business, I had no expectation. I didn't say I want it to be this much million or this many people and whatever. I was just saying, let's just see what happens, innit? You know what I mean? Let's have a go and let's have fun while doing it. And I think for me, the big thing was, you know, what's the worst that can happen? And I've had fun doing it, like, ever since. Like, I get out of bed, like, in the morning, and I'm like just excited to get out there, like, and work on the next project. We've got 5 projects on at the moment. One for a museum, one for a dance company. You know, we're doing some work with an engineering firm. You know, like just a vast array of really interesting projects. And again, I didn't say that, oh, we're only going to do these type of projects, because that's what I've done in the past. Somebody comes with a crazy project, I'm like, yeah, that sounds amazing. I want a piece of that, like, I want a part of that. And that's what comes out of that sort of positive mindset is like, you know, I could do that, like in it. I can do that, and I'll have a go, like in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of opportunities come out of that, and a lot of work comes. Like we don't really do advertising. All of our work mostly is through word of mouth, and recommendations from people, and gaining people's trust, and being sort of efficient, and you know, being reliable, you know, and delivering, you know, what we say we can do. But we're very honest about it. So if I can't deliver it, I'll say, look, we can probably do it, but it's going to take us a bit longer because we're a small team, and you know, and kind of, you know, that, and I think that's what I was good at. I didn't realize, that business was about relationships and about people, and I kind of learned that as I've been running the business, really. So, yeah.
Do you know, you said a little bit earlier, that you had to have a conversation with your wife and let her know that I'm gonna go now pursue my career, essentially, in building this business, and you had to have that conversation, right? For most men, that would be a bit of a difficult conversation in terms of uncomfortable conversation. Like I know a lot of guys that will kind of stay in their situation based on the fact that they have responsibilities and they've got responsibilities, but they are too prideful to say, look, wife, hold this down for a hot second. I'm going to do this, and we reconvene.
No,
I'll pay the bills once I get to a certain point. Like, I want to kind of touch on that a little bit, about kind of your mindset in having that conversation with her, and then also the support that she obviously gave you was brilliant, because it obviously enabled you to be able to go off and do what you're doing. Can you happily now say that you've taken back the reins and you're like, this was why I done it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like she's happy because things are getting done around the house, and things are getting fixed that haven't been fixed in a long time. And that's her main thing. Like, my wife is amazing, and she doesn't really need that much. She's not that demanding. And
she's lovely.
She's and like, I kind of like, the thing is, it's a decision when you're kind of on your own. That decision only affects you. This decision was going to affect my wife. It was going to affect the house. It was going to affect my kids. So she had to be a part of that conversation. And if she hadn't agreed to it, I probably wouldn't have been able to move forward with it. Like, I couldn't, because it would have affected her. And the thing is, I think the good thing was that she's, and I think I do end up saying to a lot of my friends, you should listen to your wife. Like, you should listen to your wife, because she'll see things that you don't see. And she'll talk to you about things, but what about this? What about that? And so she was more of a realist about it, like, and she's looking at the practical side of it, how it's going to work. And so I was like, she made me kind of aware of a few things, and I had to go away and think about it and then come back to her.
Did that make you a bit defensive?
Not really. Actually, I think I've got to the point where I can, because I've come from that art background where you go to kind of like, you do some sculpture, and you always go for feedback. So if you really want to improve in your art, feedback is the main thing, is getting that sort of, taking it to the teacher or the master and them saying, okay, this isn't right, and you need to think about this, and you need to think about this. You kind of crave that feedback, after a bit, because you want to improve, The more you want to improve, the more you crave the criticism and feedback. And I've actually got to a point where I actually love criticism. Like, even the people who work for me, I want them to criticize me and say, I try and get honest feedback, and it's really difficult, because people think they're going to hurt your feelings. I'm like, look, you can't offend me, And even with the sculpture, I was like, I would show it to like my peers and say, look, don't hold back, be brutal in your kind of like assessment, and just give it to me, like, in it, because I really wanted to improve. And so with her, when she came back to me, I was like, some of the points really valid. And I said, there's maybe some things that I need to put in place first. So she was like, when you get to a certain place where you've replaced sort of 2 days of your week, like, in it. So she said, like, when you replace 3 days of your week, with business wages, then you can sort of leave, and I'll handle the rest of the other 2 days. And so that was like, she actually quantified it, which was really useful. So I was like, okay, I've got a goal now. I've got to reach that. As soon as I reached that, I was like, look, I've reached the goal, and I'm going to leave now. But I think the other thing was that she saw how unhappy I was. And she saw how excited and happy I would feel when I would talk about the business or talk about what, you know, contracts we would potentially get and who I spoke to. And I think she saw that change, and my kids saw that change in me as well, from sort of quite a dark, distant, sort of sad person into like a joyful person. And I think that's the thing that I found from this, is I found a lot of joy in it, because I started to be able to decide on what I want to work on. I wasn't just a project thrown at you and I have to do it. Like, I can say no to certain projects. Some projects I have even initiated myself. I've approached people and said, you know, I'm working on this and I think you're amazing. What do you think you could do as well? Like, and like I approached you as well and I said, look, I'm working on this. I think you're thinking the same thing and we could do something amazing together. And, you know, the projects just came out of that, and I just get a lot of joy out of that, because essentially I'm a creative. And I talk to a lot of people my age, and, you know, people who do a little bit of artwork on the side and they hide it. They do some sketching and they're hiding it and stuff. And what I say to them is, they're all in good jobs and that, but maybe not happy in their job. But what I say to them, if you're creative, you're only going to be happy if you're creating things and you're sharing them with people. And it's just an inherent sort of quality about you. And so I say, well, you know, even if you can do it on the evenings and weekends, because I started my sculpting, it was like, even on the weekend I could do a bit of sculpting. I get a lot of joy out of it. I get a lot of happiness out of it. And that's where it really came from. And I say, you know what, why do you have to do something that's not bringing you any joy in your life? You know, why do you continue to do it? Why aren't you pursuing the things? What's stopping you from pursuing the things that bring joy to your life? Whether that's doing some painting on the weekend, whether that's learning a new instrument, whether that's going out and doing some calligraphy, or just going to a workshop and doing some dance or some yoga. You know, why not liken it and explore it? And, you know, I know people who just walked into a yoga class by accident and ended up becoming yoga instructors, liking it because they loved it so much. And I think it is that following your passion. It's the quality of your life is about the things that you're doing in your life, the things that you're passionate about. You're exploring the things that you love, and you're around the things and the people that you love. I think that brings joy to your life, innit? And that's more important. And I think that I would rather be poor in the situation that I'm in now, rather than being in a really well-paid job. I've seen both sides, and I've said that actually I would never go back, like, in it. This is just so amazing, being able to sort of just get up and have a conversation with yourself, you know, and saying, I decide to do that, or taking a day off and being able to spend it, go and see one of my friends, and having that autonomy and being able to be creative in the way that I want to be. And like the sculpture thing came just out of like pure interest, and, you know, entering a competition and saying, you know, doing the visuals for this place, and then winning the competition, and them saying, oh, can you sculpt a full-size sort of statue? And then that's like, yeah, it's crazy, like, and I'm thinking about it now, and I was like, if you would have told me this like 3-4 years ago, and I would have said, like, nah, that's not me, like, that person sitting there is not me. But really it is, it's inside everyone. Everyone's got that sort of spark in them. Everyone's got something that they're passionate about. And I would say, look, if it doesn't have to be like, and I don't do this thing where I go to people and say, oh, you should be running your own business, or you be doing, you know, everyone's got their own life or their way of living. Some people are happy in the jobs that they're doing, but there's something that you're passionate about, even if you just explore it on the evenings and weekends, share it with your kids, you know what I mean? Share it with the people around you. It'll just enrich your life. You know, it's not going to take anything away from you, innit?
Yeah. Well,
and you lose nothing from it.
You just gain happiness. Oh, mate, this conversation's been lovely. I am really, really happy. You've come all the way from Birmingham for me, and I just appreciate you for that. Honestly, Taran, I think you are phenomenal, and I can't wait to tell you about the things that I think we could do together. I want to lastly just touch on, I want to ask you a question. So this whole podcast is about the journey to 100,000, right? And trying to make it more attainable for people watching to understand what it really takes to run a business. Because I see so many self-employed people that are like, yeah, I'm running a business and da-da-da-da-da, but they are, my opinion, that's not a business. Your time is traded for money, the same way employment is, right? Yeah. So your time, you go to work, you get paid for the time that you do. being self-employed is the same exact thing. Like I can say that because I was self-employed for a very long time, and I didn't understand. Well, no, I did understand. I couldn't take the step into business and having employees and time freedom, which is a thing that everybody tries to be self-employed for, time freedom, right? Yeah, it became very difficult for me to kind of do that because I was stuck doing the business and in the business as opposed to working on the business, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously, you wouldn't be on this podcast if you hadn't reached the 100,000 mark, right? Not to delve deep into finances or anything, but what is your trajectory when it comes to money and how much money your business can actually bring in? And also, just so that people kind of understand that 3D, AR, VR, immersive technology, metaverse, we haven't even touched on metaverse, but all of those things, right? How much can that help and support the next generation of creatives coming up in the world? Because really the world is only going in that direction, right? So I want people to really understand how much understanding this world is going to benefit them from now, as opposed to allowing it to roll out and 5 years down the line they're like, oh crap, how do I now get into it, right? That's one of the reasons kind of why I wanted you on the podcast. But yeah, what is your trajectory?
Yeah. So since we started, we have been able to double the business each year. So that's happened so it's like just a straight line like that. But I believe that it'll be like that. But I think it'll be exponential, so it start to curve upwards. So we're hoping to sort of be able to reach like a million within sort of the next 3 years. We should be able to get there, as long as what I say to my team is, as long as we don't do anything really stupid.
Yeah.
I think literally it's pretty much going in that direction. So that's our trajectory. But I think for myself, I think I'm not too fixated on the actual figures. I'm more fixated on the business and who we are and what our culture is and the type of work that we want to do and achieve and show, our creativity really. And I think for me, it's always been about that. It's been about trying to be as creative as possible and express that through the work that we do. So I think for me, it's more about working on those sort of, big world-class brands and being able to work on projects for them and move them into the immersive field. But I think the opportunity in the immersive field at the moment is massive. It's absolutely huge. If you think about during the pandemic, some of the film and TV, gaming, all these industries didn't suffer. They actually grew during that period. So they're pretty much COVID proof, and the demand is only going to increase. The mobile phone usage is increasing, the capability of mobile phones, VR headsets are becoming more accessible and cheaper. The glasses, there's already a couple of glasses out at the moment, and there's going to be new ones. Apple are going to be coming out, Facebook are coming out, they're going to be coming out. Within a few years, you can have contact lenses. So what you got to imagine is the demand for content is going to be absolutely through the roof. So anyone who can sort of 3D model, code, program interactively, use game engines, all of these interactive applications are run through game engines, which they rename now to real-time engines, so they're more business friendly. Because when I was 10 years ago doing my research and talking about game engines, architectural companies were like, we're too posh for that, that's child stuff. And that's really what I found in my study, was that they thought it was this is a kid's thing, and they didn't really understand what it could be applied to. So so the demand for content is going to be massive. So the demand for content creators, people who can create the content, animate the content, and produce these training materials, animation, interactive experiences, is going to be massive. And that's a big part of actually what we do as well. So a large part of our business is running boot camps and teaching people about immersive. So we work with the Unity Centre of Excellence in Manchester. We also mentor for mastered.com. These are a couple of places where you can come and learn. We also teach at Steam House now as well, so we've taught courses there. And so education is a big part of...
And you work with Black Coder?
Yeah, that's it. I work with Neo Enterprise as well, so we ran a boot camp for Black women last year as well, which was really successful. I really enjoyed that. I loved that more than anything, because it really kind of showed me how kind of within 16 weeks we could get somebody to be able to start producing VR content based on what they were interested in.
Right.
So that was fascinating. So yeah, so the proposition there is amazing. Like, it's only going to grow. It's not suddenly, oh, we don't need any more content. It's just going to be, we need more. And there's actually a lack at the moment of skilled kind of producers of content. And I mean, like I said, we've got 5 projects on at the same time at the moment currently, 2 which we've just finished, and we've got another 2 incoming. So I mean, like, we're really busy. We just hired we just hired a new 3D modeling lead, an admin person. So like, yeah, our team's sort of growing as well at the same time, and all these things that I've got to say, like, I'm learning as I'm going along. Like, and I don't profess to be like, a skilled entrepreneur. I'm like an amateur entrepreneur, just learning.
But is there any skilled entrepreneurs?
I don't think. Yeah, that's what I think. I think everyone's learning from everyone I'm speaking to, even people who've been doing it 20 years. And I've got a couple of mentors who I speak to, and like one of them, he's been in business for a very long time. And like, he's saying, he says, I'm still facing the problems you're facing, just on a bigger scale. So you're talking about, you got to hire like 2-3 people. He's got to hire like 500 people for a new project. And he's like, but I feel the same as you. And like, kind of that kind of gives you a lot of confidence in terms of, oh, I'm not alone. Everyone faces this, like, everyone's having the same problem, or, everyone has to go through this. And like, speaking to people who are more experienced, they always say, you know what, I went through the same thing. And even that is just really helpful to understand that, oh, it's not just me being silly or, not understanding. It's just, this is just the path that we got to walk on, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. There are times where like I question myself, why am I doing this? Yeah. Why do I go through this? But then I realize when the projects kind of come along, and you know what I mean? And it's getting easier because I'm learning to sort of let go of certain things as well. So when you're running the business on your own and you've got a small team, there's a lot of pressure on you to sort of do everything. But then slowly starting to let go of things, like, in it. So we somebody in admin can take off like 15-20% of your workload. And then somebody coming in as a 3D lead is taking off 20% of my workload, and then a developer coming in taking another 20% of my workload. So all of a sudden I went from 100% going down to 40%, and then having a bit better work-life balance and things like that. So, and the thing is, you can decide as well. You create the lifestyle that you want. And the thing is, I'm more interested in having a good work-life balance, being able. So I get to. This is a wicked thing. I get to drop my kids off at school and pick them up every day, and that's like amazing. And when I was asked, like, my mentor asked me, like, what do you want to be able to do? And I said, well, I don't want to just disappear from my family or just be the business be all my whole life. So being able to drop them off at school, pick them up from school as well when I want to, and come home, make them something to eat, and then then carry on, maybe do another couple of hours work while my wife comes home. It's awesome.
I think that in itself is brilliant, is understanding from the beginning before you step into it, and allowing yourself to. I say this all the time. Humans are contradictions, right? So allowing yourself to want something and then not want it after a while.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's okay. That happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like allowing yourself to say, this is what I want from my business. I'm happy to have a steady trajectory to $1 million in a few years, as opposed to going 0 to $1 million in 1 year, because I'm putting my all into it. But allowing that steady trajectory allows me to pick up my kids. And drop my kids off. And that's more important to you. But you knew that going into this, which then allows you to curate your business around the lifestyle that you want. And then not having the over-exceeding expectation of the business doing $1 million in a year, but yet you still want to pick up your kids and drop them to school, and then do dinner time and do family time. Like, understanding that balance.
And it comes into how you want to run the businesses as well.
Right.
Because you don't have to run it the way other people run it.
Exactly.
Like, we don't run it the way other people run it. Like, we're more sympathetic to our employees. We're more flexible. And like, if somebody needs to go and look after their kids, I've got kids, I know what it's like. If somebody's kids are ill or sick or whatever, I'm just like, just go. We'll handle it. And being able to do that and do things differently and say, well, actually, we're not going to take on that really lucrative big contract, because it's going to make everyone's life hell, innit? And sometimes you make those decisions not just based on see that it can't just be it's that £1 million target or it's that profit target. It's got to be, you know, it's the money. It's got to be a balance of different things.
Yeah.
So you got to say, well, what is the quality of life? What is the joy factor of everyone in the business? Yeah. Like I speak to my employees a lot and saying, look, how are you doing? How's everything going? And, you know, and then they'll tell me like, yeah, I'm really enjoying this project and I didn't enjoy this project, and we can steer it that way. And I think doing it more kind of holistically in that way is much better. Like, and I think you're going to see more businesses like this come out. And I think, why can't you run a business spiritually? Why can't you have spirituality in your business where it's about well-being, it's about the goodness that you put out, the profit? Like, we have a big thing in Sikhism about, you know, it's not just about the money, the profit. The profit is also the goodness that you put out. Like, and that's something that you've earned, the goodness that you put out, which helps the world, helps you as well, be positive. So I think, yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, so I think being a bit older and like being a bit more kind of jaded has been quite useful, because I'm like, well, you know, I've seen people in high-powered jobs who are not happy. So I don't really want to be high-powered. I'm happy kind of just chilling down here for a bit. And then maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time, I'll be ready for some of the big guns and stuff like that. And the thing is, move at your own pace. Like, I'm not rushing into things that I'm not comfortable with, you know, too much, yeah.
Onto that point, I remember you saying to me when we had a conversation before that you turned down investment.
Yeah. So we were approached by somebody and they said, you know, we think that the stuff that you do amazing. We did a presentation to their sort of VC sort of board, and yeah, they were like, they were interested in investing in us. This is like going back about 8-9 months ago. And you know, they were putting forward you know, it would have allowed us to grow a lot quickly, because when you're a small business, you have to be very careful, step very carefully, because one wrong step could really kind of damage the business. So taking on the wrong contract, yeah. But like we've kind of done it a bit more carefully and a bit more safely, and you know, I prefer to do it. We've got a good foundation then, rather than trying to grow too fast, too big, and then falling apart, because that can happen. And so when the VC fund came in, like, it was like, yeah, you know, I looked into it, had an idea of how much percentages and things like that. We're quite early stage as well, so they're asking for more, but it would have given us the injection to grow bigger and made things easier. But at the same time, I still wanted things to be, I was happy the way things are like at the moment, and I'm happy to grow it a bit more. And I said to them, look, maybe in 2 years' time or maybe in 3 years' time, we'll be ready for something like that. But at the moment, we're kind of still working our way out, yeah. Because I like the ability to be able to decide on certain things without having to be about profit. Because a lot of the projects we work on, some of them are not profitable, but they're hugely sort of rewarding for us and our team, because they're some of them are like causes that we believe in. So if somebody approaches us and they say, look, we haven't got that much money, but we've got this, but we're about this cause, like Neo were as well. And I was like, yeah, we're on board with that. You know, we believe in that, so we will put our foot in as well, so we can help out a little bit. And he gives us the freedom to do that. Whereas if we were sort of under sort of like a board or an investment fund, then it'd be like, oh, why have you done this project for? It's not profitable there. But I was like, no, but the thing is, we got a lot of joy out of that project. You know what I mean? We had so much fun doing that project, yeah, and that's really important to us.
How much was the fund?
It was kind of going into like 500,000. So yeah, it would have been like 500,000 investment. It would have meant we would be able to employ, like, you know, head of marketing, head of this, head of that, and whatever, and put everyone in place, and you know, and plus we would have got that management support as well. But I was like, okay, yeah, maybe in the future, maybe if we found someone aligned with our values a bit more, you know, maybe it might be an option in the future, but it'd have to be somebody who has that same sort of, you know, the values that we have, as in we will work on projects that we believe in and we think give good value to communities, because we're all about diversity and inclusion as well. So we started the official Birmingham Unity user group, which is a free group that everyone can come and learn about Unity. And next one, we're actually doing motion capture. So we've got.
Wait, can I come, even though I'm not from Birmingham?
Oh yeah, 100%. Everyone's available. It's just like it's targeted towards Birmingham, but everyone's available, and we're going to be doing motion capture. But the other thing that we started out was, what we realised was that a lot of innovation and tech happens in the town centre in Birmingham, and a lot of amazing stuff happening there. Birmingham is the fastest growing tech sector in the UK. And so
Do I need to move?
yeah, everyone should just come there, yeah. And so basically, all this is happening, but the thing is, we don't see that reflected in the kind of the communities where we live. So in Handsworth, Lozel, Sparkhill, Small Heath, all these sort of areas which are quite deprived. We don't see them. They don't have access to those opportunities or that technology. Or again, like we were when we were younger, we think that, oh, actually we don't belong there, yeah, or it's not a place for us, and so what we decided to do was actually, let's bring all this tech, all this amazing stuff that's happening, but bring it back to the community and make it accessible and do it in their home. So we found a community centre there in Handsworth, who really kindly, the Niche Garment Centre in Handsworth, they really kindly allowed us to use the venue for free. And so we invite people, and on the 15th we've got like a cybersecurity event, which is going to just teach people in the area, in the community, young people, parents, anyone around. It will teach them what cybersecurity is, how it's a booming business, people can transition in from other industries, and what the opportunities are. So that's another initiative that we run, and we don't get paid for that. We do that because we love it, because we know it's an important thing that needs to be done.
I think it's so good that you've been able to stick to your values and the things that you want, right? But I think that's what's really important is the fact that you knew that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
And not allowing yourself to kind of get bogged down by what everybody else kind of says or thinks and things like that. So
I think that's really important, to know yourself and understand, like really say, otherwise you'll just end up in the same place as you were when you were in work.
Precisely.
You know what I mean?
You just end up depressed all over again, and it's your own business.
And it's like, the thing is, the business has enabled me to do that. I care about my community. I care about people out there. I know that there's young people out there who, like us, haven't got the opportunity or don't see a way forward. And if we can help them, I think that's an amazing thing that we could do. And running the business has enabled me to do that. Yeah. And so that's another reason why I love running the business, because it allows me to do other things that are not profitable or not part of the business, but I can do them anyway, which is really fun.
Taran, you have been a joy to talk to. Thank you so much for coming in today. I couldn't thank you enough for making the time for me, and also just dropping the gems, and telling me your story and being so open about it. I think that we are most definitely gonna onboard a lot of people into this new space, and allowing creatives to be able to be more immersive and just more willing to look at new technology earlier on with the education that you're kind of giving, I think is brilliant, right? So massive thank you for coming in, and yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Really happy to be here.
You're most welcome.
You was just listening to the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat, and thank you so much for listening all the way through. Don't forget to click subscribe and share to at least one person, because that's the only thing that's going to fuel us to carry on.